Americans are complaining about immigration. Are they indigenous to the state they are staying to? I said this before. Migration is not new. Even your ancestors were not always here.
Oh yeah,
exactly. So what are we talking about?
So yeah,
They replaced the indigenous people there.
no, they didn't just replace them; they killed them.
Look at the great replacement theory, for example. One of the core things that it says is that the white population are slowly being replaced by a growing number of immigrant population and all of that. Maybe racist undertones behind that.
Oh, huge racist undertones.
True. But when you now look at the data, in the 1950s, America was like an 80% white majority country. Fast forward to 2024, they are now like a 60% white majority.
A lot of the things fueling immigration, whether legal or illegal, economic crisis and political instability in countries that European countries are actively participating in. Now we are seeing Sudan being destabilized.
Right.
What are they doing about it? Are they selling weapons to both parties?
Why do people destabilizing Sudan? It's not European countries this time.
Yeah, but a lot of them are still being helped by the Western countries.
Look at England. England feels like they owe it to the Commonwealth nations. Alright? They give funding, they give scholarship. You go there. Because you're part of the Commonwealth. And why do you think they need to do that? It's because, well, you've colonized them before. This is a form of reparation to them.
England, the only people to have.
It's irrelevant.
When you have like hardline Islamic fundamentalists who are trying to institute like a Sharia law in a country like Canada that is like a free liberal society.
Yes.
In that constitution, how exactly can you like merge the concept of tolerance or acceptance? Don't you think that maybe there are just some
They are on opposite
cultures,
sides.
yeah, that may just not be able to tolerate each other or accept each other because they are just antagonistic to each other? When you hear the word nationalism, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Is it racist, bigot, xenophobe, fascist? Those are general terms that are used on social media nowadays to describe nationalists. What about when you hear the phrase globalist? What also comes to your mind? Is it like just financial elites, world leaders who are disoriented from the realities on the ground of everyday people? These are growing words that are being used across social media and general discourse. People are getting weary of both nationalist sentiments and also globalist sentiments. So today we decided to combine them together and talk about this growing trend or growing issue in geopolitics today. I'll be talking about, can multicultural societies work? Right? Can multicultural societies work? And if they can, how exactly can we make them work? Right? So we want to sit back and enjoy this discussion and also contribute your opinions as well in the comment section. So to have the discussion, I have probably two of the best set of people that you can talk about such a dicey and sensitive topic, but yet important one. I have with me Semeton. Semeton is a co-host of the Perspective podcast. Semeton, it's good to have you here today once again.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Happy to be here again.
Yeah, good to have you. I think the last time we met was when you talked about his war necessary for peace.
Yeah.
And you gave very good insights, and I can't wait to have your own perspectives today as well. Yeah, also we have Semeton is like a co-host in the Perspective podcast, and rather than have just one of the hosts, we decided that why settle for one we can have two, right? And so we decided to bring in the second co-host as well in the Perspective podcast, and that is Emmanuel. Emmanuel, it's good to have you here as well today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. The last discussion was a pretty much intense one.
Oh yeah,
Let's
it
call
was.
it that.
Yes.
But I love your insights, and I hope that we can bring that sort of energy and that sort of like diverse or insightful perspective as well to this discussion.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So I'd like to start with Semeton. Semeton, when you hear the theme of the discussion, basically, can multicultural societies work?
Mm-hmm.
What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Do you think like it's a possibility, or do you think that it's an impossibility, basically?
Yeah, so when we look at that question, can multicultural society work? We're looking at three things there: multicultural and society. And when we look at societies, that is a very big subset of every society. Human beings are a walking contradiction. We have individual identity, and yet we are social animals. And so there is a need to interact with people. And it always starts from family. And so you bond with your family because you are related by blood. Not necessarily because you are the same. Even if you're a twin, your twin is different from you. What goes through your head is different. But usually find a common ground and you progress. And before you know it, about 70,000 years ago, when the human species was developing today as a modern man that we have it as a society, you start having families forming clans. And then that start forming bands, a few 10 or 100 of people. And then bands are related by geography, by, the sort of trade they do, the sort of work they do, the sort of god they worship, which is like a subset of their location. And then they started meeting together, they start forming tribes. And the question becomes, can two bands or two clans exist as a tribe? We have our own interests, you have your own interests. Do we fight? Then they have shared common, something there's a shared common interest, then they form tribes. Then later you start having 2 tribes, 3 tribes coming together, and there's also like some frictions, then they also form bigger society. You have ethnic groups, with individual clans, individual languages, but later start to blur together. And then we start having nationalist movements that, we can actually bring different ethnic groups together. Look at Nigeria, for 250 ethnic groups, yet one nation, one shared identity, Nigerians. We have that all over the world, over 200 countries that we have different ethnic groups. Initially, there were conflicts, but then there's a shared identity. And so today we are looking at that, and we have different cultures that have emerged over the years, sometimes different ideologies, different religious identities, different work, in fact. And the question again is presenting to us, can they work together? And we've seen good examples. We've seen Hong Kong, we've seen Canada, where we have different people, different race, different cultures that are coexisting peacefully. And then they are also, moving the human species forward, because that is the need for us to come together. That is why we become basically dominant on this planet, and we are commanding everything that is happening, because we can share our knowledge together and we can build a stronger society. So this is a superset. This is a bigger question. Like, we are not talking about tribes anymore, we are talking about larger societies. And is it possible? Of course it is, but that's not without its initial frictions or conflict. Always remember, at every point that we've tried to band together, whether as a smaller groups or as a larger groups, there's always conflict, but we've always looked for a superset of shared interest. Okay, this is what we can all agree on in spite of our individual differences, and we've always progressed from that. And so because of that, I think that this is just the next frontier. So we're coming together, because when we talk about multicultural societies, now we're looking at globalism, that as a global species, we want to become galactic someday. How can we come together? So the question is, what is the shared interest that we can't just agree on to get to that part? So yeah, it can work, I believe so strongly.
All right, I like how you started, in the sense that you talked about different ethnic groups, or rather, say families coming together, then communities, then ethnic groups, then before we have nationalist movements, all of that. So yeah, but when it now comes to multicultural societies, right, there's usually this juxtaposition between how exactly should we make these multicultural societies exist.
Yeah.
Should they exist as maybe different groups of people coming together to have one identity, or different groups of people coming together to form a country with still maintaining their individual identities and all of that, right? So there are some arguments for or against some of those movements. Well, which one of them will you lean towards?
Yeah, so when we look at identity, it means several things, right? We share the same identity, we are from the same ethnic group, but your surname is different from mine. We also have our individual identities. So I think that's the thing. People are always afraid that, okay, if you're going to live together, then we have to ignore all our identities. That is not how we live our world. There's always uniqueness in everybody, but there is a superset of a shared identity. So the reason why I'm in Nigerian is not because everybody is a Christian like I am, or everybody is from Badagry like I am. It's because we are in the same geographical location. When you draw the arbitrary border, we exist in the same place. All right, we're blacks. That's a superset thing. And when I see him, like, oh, this is my brother. We speak pidgin English. That's a superset of an identity. Yeah. I still have my own Yoruba. I still have my own ego. So something like that. When we look at multicultural society, they can still maintain their individual languages, individual religion, but maybe economic policies can then be the shared common interest in this case, right. Or a superset of, okay, we want to go to space, like we have it, during the moon landing. That's a shared identity that we can all identify.
Venturing into like greater technological heights.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. Yeah. So you made a good point about how the identities. Maybe I would like to get back to you on that when it comes to immigration.
Okay.
Like people with different cultures immigrating into a homogeneous society, sort of.
Oh.
We used to want them to retain their identity in that place, or should they adopt the culture and identity of wherever they are immigrating to? Well, when we talk about that, subsequent in discussion, but I want to come to like Emmanuel. I know
Yeah.
Emmanuel is someone who has studied a lot of these dynamics, multicultural dynamics, right? But I want to get your opening perspective, right? When you think about that topic itself, like, can multicultural societies work? What is like your initial perspective or response?
All right, so I would like to give this answer. I was waiting to give it at the end to be like, what is the solution to multiculturalism? The first thing is tolerance and acceptance. And when we go back to what Josh mentioned, that clans, tribes, ethnic groups, countries, one of the things you would see in every of those particular groups of people is acceptance and tolerance. So do you accept the other group as a unique identity that is not subdued under yours? When you have this sense of superiority, like the iron superiority that bet the Nazi group, you start to see others as being lesser than you are. It doesn't promote multiculturalism. It promotes superior and inferior, and the inferior have to be knocked out, killed in this sense. So can a multicultural society work? Yes, it can, if we tolerate and accept each other. Now, Canada is a good example of a multicultural society that is working. One of the ways they did it is by codifying it into law. So it's a law in Canada. They have the Multicultural Act of 1971, Multicultural Policy of 1988, and they have 5 stipulations. One of them is that they are going to recognize each individual ethnic identity. 2 is that there's going to be equal treatment and recognition under the law. So like when they go to the court system, they are not differentiated as, oh, you are this tribe, you are that tribe, and this tribe gets more. There's favoritism. Like when they go there, courts treat them like better than the others. Others are like, they would encourage equal participation of all the groups in the economy. And another is that like the institutions would recognize the differences and promote them and encourage that each one of them are active parts of it. Meaning that every Canadian institution would accept whether they are Hindu, whether they are Christians, whether they are Muslims, for any of them to participate there. So they can become police officers, for example. They can become ministers, for example, and no one is subdued. So that is an example of a multicultural society.
Very interesting take. Very interesting take. I agree with you in the sense that Canada is like a functioning multicultural society. Right?
Yes.
So, but then I also want to like get into form of more insight into what you're saying in the sense that talked about like tolerance and acceptance of diverse cultures and perspectives, right? But what happens in a situation where there is a culture or a perspective, right, that is kind of antagonistic to the prevailing culture in a state already, right? So like for example, where you have like hardline Islamic fundamentalists probably trying to institute like a Sharia law in a country like Canada that is like a free liberal society.
Yes.
In that constitution, how exactly can you like merge the concept of tolerance or acceptance? Don't you think that maybe there are just some
they're on opposite sides,
that may just not be able to tolerate each other or accept each other because they are just antagonistic to each other?
Now that's a very good question. And one answer I would give is that Canada doesn't seem to have that problem currently.
I'm not saying it's happening. I'm just saying like,
if it were to happen.
It's because we talked about like for some of the things that are encoded into the
law. Yes.
Right. I agree with that. But the people who were making those laws in those times, they may not even necessarily have factored in like a sort of polarized or antagonistic viewpoint coming into the country, becoming a significant part of like the culture. I'm not saying like Islamism, I'm just saying like, for example, right? Right. So, but then in that kind of situation, the law, the people who made the law did not necessarily envisage any form of like antagonism in cultural identities because it was majorly like French speaking, English speaking,
then indigenous groups
at that time. right? But now, when
No,
you
even at the time they made the laws, we already had large groups of other ethnicities in Canada. Because 1988 is not
yeah,
that
but
is not that
they were
long
much
ago.
more. I agree, but
Even
yeah,
till
but they were
now,
much
there
more-
are still more French speaking, more English speaking people from like of European descent
Yeah.
than other immigrants. Oh, it's still the same till now, yeah. I understand your point, and
Yeah.
I feel like lots of it stems from Europe. Europe is the one that has this issue. And one of the reasons that I think for it is because people were brought into European societies and there was not a pathway for them to, adopt the cultures of the new countries that they came into. Now, Denmark is one country that has restrictions on immigration. And one of the reasons is that there's a entire Danish identity they are trying to protect, yeah. And so they didn't really when there was a huge wave of immigration in Europe, that Denmark didn't really participate. And that's why you find that in Denmark, in Denmark football team, for example, you can't find any black person there. Because there are hardly other groups there. Now, European countries allowed immigrants to enter, and there was not a stated plan of how to integrate these people fully into their societies. So now, for example, everybody that goes to Canada knows that, oh, I'm becoming a Canadian.
Yeah.
So I have to subscribe to Canadian values.
Yeah.
Correct.
So people going into Europe are not going there to think that, oh, I'm becoming French, and I have to be subscribed to French values. Because the government is not encouraging everybody to, have this common identity and shared values. Even in Canada, they still have oh, I am Hindu. Those, there are some guys there that wear this turban on their head.
Yeah.
Those Singh guys,
Yeah.
they are different. They have, they do Diwali and all their festivals and all those stuff.
Yeah.
So they have their own distinct identity,
Yep.
even in Canada.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they still identify as what? Canadians.
Yeah.
So I feel like one of the issues that Europe had was not
Lack of assimilation.
lack of assimilation there. And the assimilation is not oh, you force everybody to accept, because that's one of the things that happened in the past.
Yeah.
When a kingdom conquers another kingdom, there's forced assimilation.
Yeah.
I think we mentioned there, but some of the jihad and some of the empire building that happened, Greece, Romans, everybody was forced to adopt a certain identity.
Yeah.
But this one is just encouraging and saying, okay, oh, everybody is equal under the law.
Yeah.
We are going to promote your interests, and because a lot of times these people are being forced to survive, so they are pushed into groups that accept them, and one of the groups that accept them are these hardline Islamists. So they find home, they find brotherhood in those people. That's what happens. So they find a community, because Josh mentioned it. We need that sense of community. So if they cannot get it amongst people who share the good and positive values, and the finding is in the guys that share, in quotes, the bad and negative values, they're going to go to those people and start to accept their beliefs. Because at the end of the day, they are just trying to survive.
All right. So that was a good dissection of the problem. So, but I still feel like we still have to go more in depth, in the sense that we made a good point that maybe there's not a clear pathway for integration and
Yes.
assimilation, right? And maybe they can improve in that aspect. But also, one of the things that you say is it's not really most of, or a significant portion of the immigration is not really legal immigration, where you have to take tests and then do some assimilation processes and all of that.
Oh yes,
It's most of a significant part of it rather is
illegal.
refugee. Illegal.
Oh,
actually.
let's go straight to the point and say
Actually,
illegal.
They come as refugees, right? They're
Yeah.
political refugees.
asylum seekers and all
asylum
that.
seekers. Obviously, most of them is more economic.
Not just economic instability in their countries.
Yeah.
And we mentioned it before, and one of the reasons why it's like that, because these countries actively participated and are still actively participating in the destabilization of those regions.
We are going to talk about that, but what I'm saying now is this: so a significant part of it is coming from refugee people seeking refugee status, right? And when they come in, they still have to go through the courts for them to hear their refugee pleas and decide whether or not it conforms to the law or not, right? So, but pending that time, there's already this growing population and all of that, and some of them it's easier to just miss the system and all of that, right? So that's part of what is causing the difficulty in like increasing the assimilation process or improving the
Yes.
assimilation process and integration process, right? So what I'm saying now is this. So when you have like a situation like that on ground, where you're finding it hard to assimilate people because of the intricacies of the situation and difficulties, people coming in for political instability, you still have to try the cases before you can do that.
Before you can accept them
before you
formally.
can accept them formally. So it's a whole lot of process, and it's before they can do that, they already have the situation on ground now that you're talking about. So how can they now deal with that, right? Because it's something that's causing a rise in anti-immigration sentiments in the world, not just in Europe, even in the United States. We just saw the recent election of Donald Trump. One of the things that he wants to do is deport illegal migrants. Like he has made it like one of the focal points of his of his campaign to deport illegal migrants, right? So basically what I'm saying is like, so when you now start having this lack of assimilation, immigrants are coming into like places like London, forming their own communities, individual sectionalities, and all of that. And the English people are feeling a bit disoriented by that change in culture and all of that. So how can they address the situation based on the reality on ground? Now that you have a situation where people are not assimilated into the society.
So I think they would have to be honest with themselves. So Europe has to decide, okay, do we not want to accept immigrants anymore? Now, the people with the nationalist sentiment, that's what they want. But the entire society has to have that conversation that we want this or do we not want this. We saw that with Brexit. They voted, the yes added, and we are seeing the ripple effects. They are losing billions of economic value. Yes, so they need to form an argument point and accept whatever decision is made.
Right.
And accept the consequences too, whether they be good or bad. So like, okay, we don't want immigrants anymore. What are the processes by which we stop that? And another thing that is important is that, like, as I mentioned, a lot of the things fueling immigration, whether legal or illegal, economic crisis and political instability in countries that European countries are actively participating in. Now we are seeing Sudan being destabilized.
Right.
What are they doing about it? Are they selling weapons to both parties?
Who are the people destabilizing Sudan? It's not European countries this time around.
It's not. Yeah, but a lot of them are still being helped by the Western countries. See a country like UAE. UAE supplies the RSF weapons. How many weapons does UAE manufacture?
That's not really an European problem per se.
The
UAE are the one funding the war in Sudan.
They are funding the war, but
and
like
Iran as well.
They are funding the wars here. But I'm saying that, like, at the end of the day, they are still being involved indirectly. Because now the world is focused on Ukraine and Gaza.
You can't keep blaming Europeans for every single thing that goes on.
Because they insert themselves everywhere.
How are they inserting themselves in the Sudan situation?
Where is the source of the weapons? Like, if they are not inserting themselves, refuse to sell anybody.
The bulk of the weapons come from the United States, right? Yeah, and they also come from Russia. If you refuse to sell to UAE, they're going to go to Russia and get those weapons. You understand? So the US or the Western nations are in a tight spot where they're trying to play your geopolitics and maintain ties with these countries that are your somewhat allies, right? And at the same time, also trying to prevent them from abusing human rights or funding wars in other places. But it's like, even if the US decides to cut off weapons from them, or the Western nations decides to cut off weapons from them, they'll still get those weapons from Russia. They'll still get those weapons from Iran. They'll still get it from North Korea. You understand? Even in Nigeria, when the Barack Obama administration cut off weapons that were using to fight against Boko Haram, where did we go to? We went to Russia, and they gave us the weapons at the end of the day. So it's a whole confluence of issues. But what I'm saying is, like, I don't think it's proper to just keep blaming Europeans for every single conflict.
No, I'm not blaming them per se. Yeah, I'm just stating their roles in those conflicts.
All right.
Because when you actively participate in issues, you should be ready for the blowback. That's my point.
Right.
Now the blowback comes in illegal immigration, and I've been seeing that, like, a lot of times, like, they are now paying. Good that you mentioned Sudan. Do you know that the Sudan hardline guy, the European Union, paid some of them to ensure that people don't pass their countries down to Europe? Yeah, not like
that's part of what they do to protect the.
What did he use the money to do?
Buy weapons or all those things. But
and now Europe is not the one causing the wars.
No, brother, I think what you're trying to do is that infantilizing other countries.
No, I'm not emphasizing like
Because
when you give people money, you are fueling conflicts.
That is how
Whether you are giving them for like they are like one of the reasons why they supported him was okay. Oh, it was going to help them stop illegal immigration coming from our part of the world here, like sub-Saharan Africa. Because if you want to pass, you are going through Niger.
Yeah.
You are going to pass through Sudan.
Yeah.
Where are you going to? You are going to Libya.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, like they need those kind of people, and they are actively giving them money.
Yeah, but I think you are just opposing two different things together. They're giving them money for them to stop illegal migration.
But they are using it to fuel conflict that would increase.
Money, whether they choose to use it to slaughter their own people, hold them responsible for that. Don't blame the people that are giving them money for a different purpose.
I'm saying that like the direct consequence is what like.
So what
is like you are continuing the cycle. You are trying to stop something, but the cycle just keeps going. Meaning you need to evaluate
the
effectiveness of your actions.
100%, yeah. But you understand that the Europeans have every right or every capacity to determine that, you know what, whether or not we are ruining your countries, we still don't want illegal immigration.
That's why I mentioned like they need to have that decision and have maybe a referendum and decide that okay, we do not want immigration.
So let's move on from that. Let's follow that line of thought, right? So I think part of the things that caused Brexit to happen was, amongst some other things, but one of the key things was like illegal immigration. Right, Britain, or even legal migration too, because the EU had quotas that every state or every nation, as part of them, needed to take in, as regarding migrants.
Yeah, right? For EU countries, let's put
EU countries to balance the stuff and all of that, and the British people were feeling overwhelmed by it, right? Coupled with the fact they had to deal with like illegal migrants coming in from France as well and all of that through boats. So Brexit was part of one of the headline issues that, illegal migration was part of the headline issues that caused Brexit, right? So I want to ask, like, based on your own perspective, do you support that growing anti-immigration sentiment that happened in terms of Brexit, or do you feel like there was a better way they could have handled such things, right?
First of all, I'm not a British person, so I can't really know how it affected them. I didn't have a first-hand experience of it. When it comes to migration is as old as the human race. People have always migrated from one place to the other. In fact, the indigenous English people were not always there to begin with. They also moved from one place to the other. Okay, and being in governance is a tough thing to do because there's so many things that you have to put into perspective. Sometimes individual people might be facing an issue as a result of some of the policies you put in place, but that policy may be helping them in a larger scale of things. Let's look at this. One of the reasons why immigration is allowed in those countries is because of cheap labor. Let's be honest about it. They come to areas and people that are already dying of hunger anyways are willing to live on the various minimum wage and give their best for it.
Which the citizens of this country would rather not do.
Yeah, to be very honest, they would rather not do that. And that will contribute because then the government has to spend less on what they do and have more money for the citizens. And oftentimes they get the benefit. If an English person, for instance, healthcare is free. How do you think one of the ways they get this money is by using cheap labor? That come like from other part of the world. And that's why you see that their citizens would rather go to other countries to earn higher than they do them. So I don't know what they were feeling at that point in time. Migration works at all times. It has always been the status quo. All right. So it is the duty of the people in that place to really assess what is going on and say whether or not they will allow people in. Obviously, there has to be a reason why we want to get people in here now, and so we also have to put that in perspective as to whether it is wrong or right. If it's for economic reasons, obviously it's going to benefit you. Whether or not you want that benefit is left to you. Again, I'm not a citizen there, so I can't tell. There are other reasons too. Emmanuel made mention of the fact that sometimes we can blame the European countries for it. Look at France. Most of the majority of people that immigrate to France, and not even all these Middle Eastern people that you're talking about, are from the places they colonized. Actually, for the most part, the whole Middle Eastern people is a more recent phenomenon due to the stability going on in that region. Look at England. England feels like they owe it to the Commonwealth nations All right, they give funding, they give scholarship. You go there, because you're part of the Commonwealth. Why do they feel that kind of why do they feel they need to do that? It's because, well, you've colonized them before. This is a form of reparation to them. That is why they are doing that.
But are England the only people to have?
It's irrelevant. That question is, look at it. If you go ahead and
They are the
and
major
go to a place-
colonists, France
no,
and
like,
England.
like, they're not the only one.
No, that's it. They're not. I'm talking about like major in
Maybe
terms of
that's
like
true.
the
I'm
scale.
not even saying that. It's
They were just like-
irrelevant.
They
Like that.
coincided with the time of industrialization.
I
and it
understand.
helped them
I
to be
understand.
more
See, I'm telling you that
skilled to that
it's
extent.
irrelevant. Really. If you go to a place and you plunder the place, of course, you can tell yourself that I don't need to pay you back. But on a larger scale, given our human feelings, how we feel about it, you will feel surely there's a form of injustice there. It is that idea of let's from a Commonwealth nation, we owe it to them, is formed out of the old sentiment of we are humans. There should be a sense of
Justice.
justice.
My point is this, right? I understand your point that definitely if you've gone up to people, it's only right that you try to correct.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying the reason why they are doing that is born out of that. It is true they can
Yeah.
decide to say, you
Yeah.
know what, we don't want to do that.
You're saying it's morally right to do that. But I accept from your perspective. I say what I'm saying is also like they are not the only ones that have carried out colonization in history.
I agree. If they decide to stop it tomorrow, I'm not saying I'm going to fight them. I'm saying the only reason why they are doing it today is because of that. If they stop tomorrow, it's none of my business. I'm just telling you, like the reason why they've been doing it up to this point is because of that.
But
So if
flawed philosophy,
it's not flawed, it's not flawed.
you agree with the philosophy?
It's born from the sense of justice. We all want justice. The fact that we want justice at the lower scale does not mean we should not want it at the larger scale.
upper scale,
It works. If you're not, if you feel like you've been beaten down from, like you're not getting something, it's only proper. That's how we form principles. Remember, I've already mentioned it before. What makes us human is beyond our individual identities. We always make conferences all the time. It is not a flawed philosophy. That it does not work, it does not mean it's flawed itself. It just maybe we are not doing it in the best way. It made the point before. I'm going to fall back to that. What does it mean for me to migrate to England? What does it mean to me? I don't know. They don't have like what it means for you to be a part of us, whether you're coming in illegally or not. If you're in Nigeria, for instance, nobody knows you as Nigerian. They just look at you, you are Yoruba. But you move out of Nigeria today and go to another country. Nobody thinks about you as Yoruba. They think about you as Nigerian. If you go to another continent, they're like, this is African. You can see how that identity is moving up, it's changing. And it's not reducing your own identity, because when you come back here, you say, it's Yoruba, that's an Hausa person. But Yoruba person, you look at it, you say, it's Egun. You can see what I'm drawing here. What does it mean for new people to come to England? What kind of identity do the English people want them to adopt? We don't usually have that. You can say that is stemmed out of the old liberalism that we have. It's none of my problem, really. So it is meant for the policymaker to say that, you know what, we want to open our borders, but this is what it means for you to come to our border. Does it mean that you need to forget your identity? If you are coming here, you need to become a Christian. What is my problem? So I will have to tell myself, if you want to go to Saudi today, we've made that point before, there is a sense of identity you must have. They're not saying you should convert to Islam, but you must respect everything there. They are not doing that. Again, none of my business. So you can say, you know what, if you want to come to Britain, it's fine. But you need to come to the cathedral with us. You need to worship with us. That is your policy. Whoever does not want that, you won't see them in your country.
I agree with you. I think what you're saying is the point that there's this guy Constantine Christian, I don't know if you know him, who was also trying to raise, in the sense that multiculturalism was supposed to be like a positive thing.
Yeah.
Right? But the way it has been carried out in Europe majorly is kind of flawed, or so it's creating more of a problem than the solution it was trying to, kind of give basically an end or extreme nationalist sentiment and all of that. So I think that policy of like no clear form of assimilation or
Identity.
adopting
Yeah.
of-
It mentioned it before. If you're going to Canada, you are going to be adopting the Canadians. If you're going to China,
so I think liberalism is ending that sort of framework that used to exist.
maybe, but
Don't you agree with that?
liberalism has nothing to. Is a
Like-
separate
like-
thinking when it comes to
No,
nationalism.
I think you made a good point about Saudi Arabia. Like, if you're going to Saudi Arabia, there's a level of like value system they're supposed to uphold. Like, you can't just go to Saudi Arabia, dress anyhow,
Exactly.
drink alcohol everywhere. It's not tolerated. You have to you have to like adopt to an extent the prevailing lifestyle.
Mind you, I'm not saying that is right. I'm just saying at least they have that.
Yeah, they have that. So, but and probably in Britain they usually have that, maybe in the early 1900s or 1950s,
Right.
when migration wasn't as in a scale or manner as it is right now.
Right.
Right. So, but they've kind of lost that, and I think do you like think that maybe liberalist values, in the sense that before, when you come into a country, you're supposed to like adopt the identity of the culture or the country, right? But now, due to liberalism, or probably due to liberalism, I want to identify what is causing it. There's this some sense of like maintaining your own identity while still demanding the privileges of the society.
Yeah. I don't know if I can make a comment on that.
Yeah.
Now, when I talk about them having an identity, I do not mean it in sense of you have to lose yours in the process. I'm saying a shared sense of identity.
Yeah.
I'm going to use this example again. If you're in Nigeria, nobody sees you, like a fellow Nigerian won't see you necessarily as a fellow Nigerian. He knows that. He's going to see you as a Yoruba man. If you're in Yoruba, they ask you, what's the name? Asanayo? That's odd. Where are you from? But I go, oh, I see. If you leave Nigeria today and go to another country, they don't see you as Yoruba again. There is a higher level of identity. But does that mean you've lost all the other identities? No. So if you're coming to Europe, you can still maintain your identity, but there is something else you should adopt. That is, and at that point, you have to agree to that may include that you should lose some things, but sometimes it doesn't need to mean that you should lose some things. Exactly. That's what we've had with Canada. Yeah. You can still be what you are, but there are higher level of code levels that bind us together.
Yeah, very true. I agree with you. But what I'm saying now is like, when you now have migration going at a larger scale, such that the willingness to adopt that higher sense of identity, as you call it, in addition to your own core values, is kind of low right now, or it's getting lower and lower, right? So people are migrating, they may not necessarily be acclimatizing to the culture as it is right now. So we also agree now, because this is what is leading to like a growing sense of anti-immigration sentiments in Europe.
Okay.
Like in Germany, you see like the AfD party starting to gain ground.
Reform Party in the UK.
The Reform Party in the UK, I think they won like 8% or 9% of the votes in the previous election. Nigel Farage and all of that. They used to be outside that before.
Marine Le Pen in France, for example, denied believe in the Great Replacement theory following the Christchurch mosque shootings. That was one of like the biggest shootings in New Zealand, and that brought about like changing gun laws in the country and all that, because all these ideologies have real life consequences, and for some people who tend to believe in these ideologies, lots of them are just finding commonalities with those ideologies. They are saying that there is this growing sense that immigrants are taking our jobs. Josh and I were speaking about it, and you didn't agree with it, but I feel it's true. Like the reason why a lot of people are gravitating towards those kinds of ideologies, and they are saying that lots of immigrants are coming in, and when you even check the makeup of those countries, they are still largely white, still largely ethnic, maybe French, German, English, and the immigrant population are still minimal. But they are seeing those other guys come in and succeed. So a lot of them find it easy to believe in those theories, because the person that formulated that theory, just combine different people's theories together, and he wasn't really affected by lots of all these things. He brought about the theory, and I think was it 2003 or 2005, like that far back.
So but I also want to.
So it's more like a conspiracy, just like Illuminati. We all grew up with Illuminati. We believe that our singers, all of them are part of, but do any of us subscribe to those thoughts now?
Well, let's leave that for
you subscribe to Illuminati. Wow.
So let's leave that for another discussion, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is this. So there are people that will take whatever theory or whatever proposition to an extreme.
Oh yeah.
So like
very extreme.
Christchurch killings,
Buffalo shootings as well.
Yeah, correct. That's an extreme.
Charlottesville.
That's obviously terribly wrong for someone to go into places of worship, stellar people, anywhere basically to stellar people. That's extremely wrong. So, but
my point is that it always ends up that way. When you look, the Great Replacement theory. There's a parallel between it and Nazi ideology.
I'm coming. Okay. So right, I understand your point that there's obviously white nationalism and extremism.
White supremacy.
Supremacy, wonderful, yes, part of it. I agree with you. I agree that white supremacists kind of promote those theories
Yes.
to further whatever form of ill agenda that they have. So, but I'm looking at the data behind the theory itself, right?
Yes.
Look at the great replacement theory, for example. One of the core things that it says is that the white population are slowly being replaced by a growing number of immigrant population and all of that. There may be racist undertones behind that.
Oh, huge
right?
racist undertones.
True. But when you now look at the data, like I think in the 1950s, about 80%, America was like an 80% white majority country. Fast forward to 2024, they are now like a 60% thereabout white majority. So from the data itself, it shows that, well, you can't argue with data, right? It shows that obviously they are losing the
Number.
population advantage that they have, and there's always going to be, obviously, when you're seeing things like that, it's always going to drive people towards those kind of rhetoric and those kind of theories. So,
But one of the things that is driving that is low infertility rates in those major European centers, and even amongst, and is greater amongst the white population.
yeah, I agree with you that infertility rates plays a role in it and all
Right.
that. But but in spite of it, like infertility plays a role, yeah, definitely. And then, but it also feels like as the infertility rates are, or rather, as the fertility rates are dropping,
Yes.
they are being like kind of now replaced, or kind of like immigrants are now trying to help to fill in the gap
Yeah.
Yes.
for that population decline. And so, yeah, it may not necessarily be an exact replica or have the racist undertone or the race replacement theory, but the data as well is suggesting that whites are
Okay,
actually being replaced.
So what you're saying is like
Deny-
the immigrant population is increasing, obviously.
yeah, it's increasing,
And then the core white population,
the indigenous population for those places,
there's kind of like a decline.
is declining, and that's what's now further pushing this, hysteria or paranoia.
I think that is a fact.
You now blame them for moving towards that.
Oh, well, I can always blame people for whatever position they hold, because everybody is, responsible for their action, responsible for their belief system.
Right.
And I was watching a video of Jamie Dixon, the chairman of GP Morgan Chase, and he said everybody's responsible for their life. So if you believe in a certain ideology, I can blame you. Why do you believe in it?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned the fact about stats about there's a growing, the immigration population is growing, and it seems that there's a decline in their own population. There are different reasons for it here. Have we examined the reasons why that is? Why there's a decline in their own population? And there's like similarly an increase in the immigrants population that has not been addressed. Some countries, they've done things like incentivizing their citizens
Exactly, yeah.
to give birth to more children.
But what I'm saying is this, like beyond just fertility rates, it's like
Yeah.
even if the fertility was still maintained,
Yeah.
the rate
Like
of
the number
immigration,
is obviously
rate of
suggestive of
immigration
that.
is still going to surpass
So
whatever.
I don't know if I can make comments to that. You see, there's a difference between correlation and causation. I think we all know that. Data is one of those things that can be misrepresented.
Yeah, can
You know
suit
that.
whoever is
Okay.
speaking about it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to look for an example now. So when people try to give you data and like, since 2020, we've had more people having cancer. I know why. COVID-19 vaccine. You feel me? Now, let's look at that. I mean, we've talked about how people talk about how there is increase in cardiovascular diseases, and how that we are eating so much processed food and all. But oftentimes when we actually look closer to those numbers, this suggests nothing similar to those. Nothing similar to those. It's just that we have better testing. It's just that we have better technology that help us catch the disease at early stage. Usually, you have to wait in stage 4 before you say, "Oh, one cancer." You understand? Sometimes some will have been resolved by themselves magically. Some people complain about NASA budgets. All right, and when you look at it, it's just 0.01% of every 1 cent that go to the other part of the economy.
Yeah.
That is small. So when you say the white population is declining and the immigrant population is declining, how do we even get this number? How was it even sampled? We had a discussion about sampling the other day, how that sometimes when data come out, it does not account for skill in data. If you go to Texas, white population. If you go to Detroit, heavily black population. You know, when you want to take your data, where are you taking it from? If you go to California,
I think
a state that has like border that's kind of open, you have a lot of black people there. If you go to some areas, there are like you have so many white people, even you there, you are afraid of for your life. And so there are so many things. What he has said, and I kind of agree with that, is that when it comes to any theory, a lot of them it appeals to people's sentiment, even with or without data. When people tell you that more black people commit crime in America, we've looked at it. More white people commit crime, and it's not even a bad thing. There's clearly more white population. It doesn't go into like this. When you look at the percentage and tell you that out of like 10,000 black people are what's it called? Committing crime. I say, oh my God, that's the Lord. And I tell you that, well, there's a million white people committing crime. And you see this clear in data. You can see that because clearly there are more white people in the country. And so, but anybody subscribing to the ideology is not going to care about that. And so you can have data that mean completely different things. America is not the only country faced with low birth rate. Go to Japan, they're faced with low birth rate.
But
they have higher
immigration.
Because, well, they didn't open their borders.
And they haven't thought about like the government is thinking about how they can solve it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was suggested was maybe immigration.
Immigration,
like,
yeah.
They decided they didn't want to go that route because that's like their own policy.
Now, I even want to make another point. Americans are complaining about immigration. Are they indigenous to the state they are staying to? I said this before. Migration is not new. Even your ancestors were not always here.
Oh yeah, most
exactly. So what are we talking about?
So yeah, but
they replaced the indigenous people there.
No, they didn't just replace them; they killed them.
So again, all these sentiments. I'm not saying people should not have that. It doesn't make it valid, and it's not even a real problem. Honestly, when you look closer, there's still more. Who are the richest people in USA today? Who owns the most wealth in USA today? Who is likely to succeed in USA today?
Now, what I'm saying is this: you are talking about the current situation. They are looking at the projected future, right? Talk about the great replacement theory. Remember, they were saying that they are systematically trying to replace the white people, right?
Yeah.
And let's talk about the 1950s stats where they were 80%.
I feel like a lot of it is circumstantial.
Now they're not.
And as I say, causation, like correlation is not causation.
So the function is this now. The paranoia you're talking about that maybe it doesn't really exist, you're just overthinking it in your mind. They are thinking about it not in the now, but in the future. That they are going to be
Outnumbered
exactly in the future.
Right.
And that's the sentiment that is driving it because they're trying to be proactive to kind of stop.
Okay, so like what are can you tell me some of those things they proposed to kind of curb that? I want to do
I think one of the things that they are obviously trying to do, number one, to curb down
immigration. Very fantastic.
See,
Let's ask a question.
Sorry,
Okay.
we're seeing it all across Europe already.
Yeah.
There's a growing anti-immigration sentiment because of things like this.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. And I think if it's not addressed, this assimilation problem we talked about earlier, and then also the sense of paranoia,
Oh, yeah.
if you want to call it that. If it's not addressed, those sentiments will only keep on growing.
Good.
Right. So you were talking about like what sentiments.
Yeah, in fact, what I'm even looking at is that remember that even the immigration we're talking about they didn't just pull it out of thin air. Some things led to something that started pulling that make them make policy in terms of let people come in. All right?
Yeah.
Those concerns are still very much there. So, are you saying the citizens saying the current sentiment towards we don't want people to supersede whatever reason why they even allow them to come?
So yeah,
I hope they will wait to see it.
Yeah, I think
Stopping immigration would not increase the birth rate. They will still have to deal with
that's
that.
what I said. There's a confluence of factors. Some other things that have been proposed, right, is a clampdown basically on the family planning which has happened systematically.
Yeah, but I don't think these guys are going to suddenly change their mind towards it. Remember, these guys are enlightened people. We're even having a lot more people
You're underestimating the influence of paranoia. Rather underestimating the influence of paranoia.
Oh no, paranoia has not caused people to give birth to more children. You can look at
the birth rate is always functional.
And again, I feel like there are even more reasons that kind of push people to give birth. I'm going to use the local example. In Nigeria today, as much as we are all afraid from the southern part of Nigeria that we have the northern people has outnumbered us, there is no enlightened person that know anything that knows this issue in depth, that is ready to give birth to 10 children, even if they have the capacity to do that.
Yeah.
There is none of them. They will have more reason to still churn out more, even though they know they don't have the capacity, because there's something else that is driving it for them.
And what is that?
And that is like the kind of ideological work that they have there. The white people you are talking about, we never say, oh, because we don't want them to replace us, let's give birth to more children. They will always take
I'm not saying
in
it's
that
going
part.
to be based on that. I'm saying there's going to be, or rather, the people that are pushing this theory
Yeah.
are also trying to clamp down on this narrative of family planning.
Oh, okay.
They
themselves, are they adopting it though?
use of
Are they adopting it? The people pushing it. How many kids do they have?
most. If you look at those countries, most of the conservatives they usually have like a higher birth rate than the liberals in those countries now. Let's be honest.
Right.
Yeah. So
How many kids does Trump have?
Are you kidding me? Trump has like
Okay, multiple macaque.
yeah, different.
Is Trump a conservative? I don't even know.
Trump is pandering to people, but that's a different thing. That's another thing with great replacement theory. Something I've observed about all this kind of ideological thing is that oftentimes
It's convenient.
people that even like push them, they want to use it to achieve a goal.
Oh yeah, it's political.
All right, and most times that goal is not the same with the people that adopt them eventually.
Yeah.
And that's why you don't see them carry gun to do those shooting. But people that adopt them do that because it's convenient to already what they have in their mind, and they see it and they're like, oh, we can pander to this set of people
and
with this
draw their support. And then when they now do certain things in the name of those ideologies, they deny them that no, that is not what we are talking about. But those things are a subset of them.
Is this, like, there will always be extremists, right?
Yeah.
Some extreme actions. What I'm trying to say is
no, but if your ideology is churning out extremists, it is a problem.
Every ideology in the world
like not those extremists that are willing to kill others.
Brother, every ideology in the world can turn out extremists. Some may be more likely to do so.
Yeah, that's the point. But it's very important. That one, what you say.
Yeah, some may be more likely to do so. But every ideology.
But this particular ideology has the highest tendency.
It has a significant tendency.
Because like a parallel of it resulted in a genocide that killed 20 million people. So what is stopping the same proponents in the nearest future to organize a genocide to kill, let's say, all the Muslim population in their countries? If the politicians keep pushing the narrative,
address the fundamental root cause.
I think we can address it. Like one of the things I've said is that it's overblown. It does not.
The situation is overblown. The situation is not as bad as as politicians are pushing it.
The issue that you are making is that you are trying to delegitimize a concern that's growing already.
Oh,
I'm telling you that you can't keep doing that. That's what they've been doing since the past 2 decades, telling them that you guys are over blowing this issue.
But I said something. I said something instructive. I said something instructive earlier. What did I say? Those societies need to decide. Now, some countries, they've elected right-wing guys.
Yeah.
See, was it Netherlands or so that had the election this year?
Yeah.
Who won? The right-wing guy won.
Yeah.
So they are saying that, oh, this is the path we are choosing. So I feel like that is a way they can sort the situation. Choose the right-wing guys. Me, I don't even care. Like, choose them, elect them.
Yeah.
Stop all immigration. Make everybody finish. Make everybody Dutch. If you go to mosques, send you back to do all those things here.
They should put the policies that they feel can.
Yes. So like I feel like speaking about all these things here creates unnecessary tensions.
All right, no problem. I agree with you. So that now let's transition into like Africa.
Yeah.
Multiculturalism in Africa.
Yeah.
Africa is filled with so many tribal groups, ethnic groups, and all of that. Some countries have as much as 200 that are our own. Motherland. As much as 200 and above. Some have 50, some have even just 3, and they still have
issues.
That we saw with the Rwanda genocide. Right. Even just with 3 major ethnic groups, they still had that sort of catastrophe that happened. So when it now comes to Africa, particularly Nigeria, right, where we have like this multiculturalism happening, and particularly when it comes to like our political system or political structure, it feels like that is one of the major triggers of cultural conflicts or ethnic conflicts or tribal conflicts, you want to call it that. So what would you say would be like a good way to set up or maintain multiculturalism in Nigeria? Or we just feel like it's best if we maybe go down the path of breaking into ethno-national states?
Now, I think one way I'll answer this, and I forgot to mention it, America has an identity. Everybody immigrating to America has the American dream. You want to achieve the best economic status you can achieve. Like you're going to be productive. Like everybody knows that you're going to work hard.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to go and slouch.
Yeah.
Canada too has it. We need to figure out what the Nigerian identity will be like.
Very true.
So what society do we want to have? We can copy the Canadians and like codify like what our identity will be like. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the same thing with theirs. It has to be something that we do intentionally. I feel like the issue is that like we are not intentional about nation building.
I agree too.
We had this national confab in 2014.
Yeah.
None of it was taken into account afterwards. So we just brought people together, everybody said stuff, and we left it there. So I feel like one of the things I would propose is that like we need to be intentional about what a Nigerian identity looks like. So that everybody who lives in Nigeria has something they can look to and be like, oh, this is what it means to be Nigerian. Because right now it doesn't seem there is. We just know we are Nigerian because we all live in the same place, like Josh mentioned. We live in the same place geographically. And what are the things that binds us? Nobody can really mention what they are. So it is the responsibility of government, the policymakers, to craft out an identity, craft out like this dream of what it means to be a Nigerian, so that people can buy in. Because like you need to craft out a vision. People talk about the leader of Dubai, of the UAE. He crafted out a vision of what he wanted this country to be like.
Right.
Singapore with Lee Kuan Yew. So they crafted out visions of, oh, these are the societies we want to build, and everybody else just keyed into those visions. So I think that's what is missing. We are multicultural, yes, but what vision, what identity do we want combine us together? So we need people that will think about those things, not just bring people together and then actually codify them and follow through. Because I feel like we have lots of ideas, lots of, we talk too much.
Yeah.
See this tax bill now. The person in charge, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, he went to speak with all the governors, spoke with everybody. Then he came to pass the bill. The northern guy said no. You see what is it that we have problems? So like we can't even agree on a tax bill.
All right. So Senator, what do you think would be a good system? Should we probably revamp the structure of the multicultural society that in Nigeria, for example, or will you say that we should just revert to ethno-national states?
If we revert to ethno-national states, it's only going to push the problem backwards, or should I say forward?
Push them very locally.
Yeah, it will still exist.
Yeah.
Let's come locally. Ife Mudakeke, we all heard the story.
Oh yeah.
We didn't stay there. These are neighboring towns. They're in the same states. They speak similar languages, right? Probably have the same ancestral trace, and yet they kill themselves. Okay? And that got resolved sometimes later. I've mentioned before, humans are different to the fundamental level. As the group becomes smaller, the differences are smaller. As it becomes bigger, the differences are bigger. We need to deal with the differences. All right, and so we need a shared sense of identity. What gives Yorubas the sense of identity? They don't even speak the same dialect. All right, but eventually it's Oduduwa. He has 7 children. It doesn't matter which of the grandchildren you are.
As long as you're from Oduduwa,
is our father. That is one thing. What makes us Nigeria? We don't have anything, and so we need that, and that requires tough actions. We need to craft one out. If that means that we need to offend some people, yes, we should. Most of the referendums that have happened in other countries, like Brexit, for it, not everybody agreed to it. The popular vote decided it, and every other person has to fall in. And so issues like the northern governors are not agreeing to is something we have to decisively deal with. Nobody should be afraid to deal with that. If this is going to lead to the economic prosperity of the nation, we need to do that. It doesn't matter whether or not your religion agrees to it. It doesn't matter or not. I mean, it doesn't even go against your religion anyways. And so what are we talking about here? Let's deal with it. You see that somehow we found a way to agree on sharing resource.
Oh yeah.
When you pull out oil from Bayelsa, you share it and give everybody their share.
You give somebody in Zamfara and you collect. No
Exactly.
questions asked.
No question asked. So when it comes about building identity, we have to deal with that. I know in one of your recordings over the weeks, you mention have been made about Obasanjo, because he actually did try to build something like that.
Yeah.
I remember growing up, I remember talking about Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. I've not heard any name that's given me any form of importance and any form of respect for a president of Nigeria since Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. I've not heard anyone. I think there is this sense of, okay, we are Nigeria. It might not be too big, but there is a sense of it at that point in time. Right now, we do not have that. There is a divide. And that divide is because we've had leaders that take using it as an advantage to push their own.
They follow those divides to push their own personal agendas.
Interest. So we need to identify them. And as young people, because I think we are the one that can do that. Because it's easy to just say we should do. The people that can do that are younger people like us. That obviously, this is the only place we know. Anyways, we are still bound by geography, anyways, and so we have to deal with that identity. We still use the same passport. So we need to start looking at, okay, what do we need to be known for? And there's so many things. I'll give you an example. If you look at UK, for instance, they might not do anything, but football, everybody knows where it is. It can even be Afrobeat. It can be as simple as having small areas that somebody can say, you know what it means for me to be in Nigeria is I can become the best Afrobeat singer tomorrow, and this is the place I can follow. So something like that is something we can do.
Yeah, thanks for that. That was very insightful. I also say, like, you know, like you mentioned, we talked about it in one of our previous recordings. Let me try to attach it out so people can check it out.
Yeah.
What's the ideal Nigerian identity?
Exactly.
Right. So, but usually, generally, I'll say that what forms identity is like, number one, your language. Language is a fundamental part of identity. There needs to be a Nigerian language that we all.
But yeah, we've adopted English as our official language and Pidgin, colloquial.
Yeah, they're saying it now. That's what I'm saying. I think a Pidgin language is something that cuts across every facet of this.
So it's more a shared identity than
English. More of a shared identity than English. English is more like an American,
like a boring
foreign language. Everybody speaks English. So, but that the Pidgin English. When you hear someone speak Pidgin, if you're in America, you hear someone speak Pidgin, what comes to your mind is that
Nigeria boy.
You get So that I think that will be a good premise to start a Nigerian identity, right? And in addition to Pidgin English as well, we also have some cultural similarities. The way we perceive elders, how elders should be treated, things like respect, things like family values as well. How a child should be raised up as well. We have those similarities. Those things should be emphasized in our secondary school curriculum, our primary school curriculum, right? I think we've not done enough work in terms of like introducing civic education as a core part of primary education.
And secondary, in fact.
Yeah, in the US, when you go to high school, you start learning things like the Declaration of Independence, all those other fundamental documents, right? That started. In Nigeria, people don't even know that we've had like up to 6 constitutions. They don't even know what the constitutions are. Legitimate's constitution, McPherson, as you said, the 1999 constitution. They don't even know what it is. So that civic education also needs to, be introduced into our society.
So we have civic education.
No, I'm saying it has to be a core part of our education.
Yeah, we should emphasize more.
Civic education is just more like
one of those courses that we do.
Education.
I think it's because
it should be a core part of it. Like as you're coming out from secondary school, one of the major things, in addition to your science, your art, whatever, is civic education. They can ask you any basic question about Nigeria.
You should be able to give answers to it.
What are the fundamental things that prompted we going to the Legitimate's constitution or the McPherson's constitution, so that you don't keep making the same mistakes of the past over and over again, because that's what we are doing. And then
I think I want to make a comment that I think it's just that we have leaders that know that ignorance is bliss. It's almost intentional. Let's be honest about it. These things are so fundamental that it's not actually difficult to implement. They are not going to hurt anybody to implement something like this. And it's going to be universal in terms of it's going to be across board. If you go to any school in Akwa Ibom or you go to any school in the northern state, you're going to have that. When the majority schools were founded by Jonathan government, what happened to them afterwards?
Abandoned.
They become non-functional. So what happened to the kids we have there? They are never going to have this knowledge, even if they are being taught in school. So what kind of leadership do we have that kind of abandon a project of such nature? So I think that we also need, that's why I say young people like us can be in the best position to do it, because we are eventually all these people will die. Anyway, it's going to come to whether or not we like it. So when we become older too, are we going to become the proverbial old fool like we do have it today?
I agree with you. So I think we've kind of made some good points. Already made that language one of those things that can help to build the Nigerian identity. Then emphasizing cultural values, and then also emphasizing civic education.
And emphasizing economic prosperity.
100%.
We are poor.
Shared economic prosperity.
You know, like there's a misconception that Nigeria is a rich country. I want to dispel that misconception. I'm speaking to the audience now. We are not a rich country. I do not want to hear anybody mention that again. It vexes me.